14th of May, 1942. Gambut Advanced Landing Ground, Libya, North Africa. Flight Sergeant Colin Dusty McPherson, an airframe and engine fitter of No. 3 Squadron, Royal Australian Air Force, stands beside the 5th Rolls-Royce Merlin XX engine music to have failed catastrophically in the last 96 hours. The engine is completely destroyed internally, music, scored pistons, eroded cylinder liners, and valves welded shut by overheating. McPherson is 29 years old, an engine mechanic from Perth, Australia. Before the war, he was employed maintaining heavy mining equipment in the Australian outback, one of the most dust-laden and hostile environments on the planet. He possesses no formal education in aeronautical engineering, nor prior experience with high-performance aviation power plants. What he does possess is a brutal, practical experience with what dust can do to internal combustion engines. The problem with the North African desert is not merely the heat, it is the sand. If you wish to discover how improvised sand filters saved hundreds of Hawker Hurricanes in the African desert music, do be so kind as to press the like button and subscribe to this channel. It assists us greatly in sharing these forgotten stories, music of technical ingenuity. The Libyan desert contains a specific type of sand which the pilots refer to as music dead man's dust. These are microscopic silica particles, 10 to 50 microns in diameter, which remain suspended in the air for hours following any vehicle movement or wind. The dust is so fine that it penetrates any conventional mechanical seal and is absolutely lethal to high-performance aero engines. The Rolls-Royce Merlin XX is a masterpiece of British engineering. A V12, 27-litre supercharged engine producing 1,280 music horsepower at 3,000 revolutions per minute music, with manufacturing tolerances of a mere 0.05 mm between pistons and cylinders. It was designed to operate in the temperate, humid climate of England, where the air is clean and dust particles are minimal. Music. In the Libyan desert, the Merlin is operating in conditions for which it was never designed. Every time a Hurricane takes off, the engine aspirates approximately 2.4 cubic meters, 85 cubic feet, of air per minute through the carburetor. In the desert, that air contains nearly 200 milligrams of silica dust per cubic meter. This means that for every minute of operation, the engine is ingesting between 480 and 960 grams of microscopic abrasive material directly into the cylinders. The dust acts as sandpaper at 3,000 revolutions per minute. The silica particles erode the cylinders, scour the pistons, embed themselves in the compression rings, contaminate the lubricating oil music, and block cooling passages. A Merlin engine operating in normal English conditions might run for 400 to 500 hours before requiring a major overhaul. In the Libyan desert, the Merlins are failing after a mere 35 to 45 hours. The Germans do not suffer from this problem. The Messerschmitt Bf 109s flying from Axis bases in Libya are equipped with Daimler-Benz DB601 engines, which include tropical air intake filters designed specifically for desert operations. These filters reduce airflow by some 8%, but they eliminate 95% of dust particles before they reach the cylinders. The British possess no equivalent filter. The Air Ministry in London has been labouring on a tropical filter design for the Merlin for 8 months, yet mass production will not be available until late 1942. Meanwhile, the Hurricane squadrons in North Africa are losing engines faster than they can be replaced. Music. McPherson is examining the 5th failed engine when he notes something specific. The erosion is not uniform. The rear cylinders show significantly greater damage than the forward cylinders. This music tells him something important regarding the airflow through the induction system. The dust music is being sucked in with higher concentration towards the rear of the engine, likely because the design of the intake manifold creates a flow pattern that concentrates heavier particles towards the posterior cylinders. If we could filter the air before it enters the manifold, music, he says to the engineering officer, Flight Lieutenant David Harrington. McPherson, the Air Ministry has been attempting to design filters for months, Harrington responds. It is not as simple as attaching a mesh screen. I am not speaking of mesh, sir, says McPherson. I am speaking of separation by gravity and inertia. Harrington looks at him with skepticism. McPherson explains. In the Australian mines, they utilised cyclonic separators to eliminate dust from ventilation systems. The principle is simple. One forces the contaminated air to flow in a circular pattern inside a cylindrical chamber. The heavy particles are expelled towards the outer walls by centrifugal force. Music they fall to the bottom of the chamber, whilst the clean air is extracted from the centre. And you propose to build a cyclonic separator for an aviation engine? Not exactly, says McPherson. I propose something simpler. A pre-filtering chamber with baffles that change the direction of the airflow abruptly. The sand particles, being heavier than air, cannot change direction so rapidly. They impact against the deflector surfaces and fall. The air continues to flow. Harrington considers this. What materials do you require? Aluminium sheets, discarded intake tubes, steel mesh from old oil filters, and 48 hours. You have 36 hours, says Harrington. Rummel is advancing, and we need every hurricane operational. McPherson begins that afternoon. The design music is brutally simple because it must be. There is no time for computational fluid dynamics calculations music nor wind tunnel testing. McPherson is working with engineering intuition and basic physical principles. He constructs a cylindrical aluminium chamber, 40 centimeters in length and 15 centimeters in diameter. Inside the chamber, he installs 3 baffles at 120-degree angles to one another. The air enters via a tangential side port, is forced to change direction abruptly 3 times as it flows through the chamber, and finally exits through a central port towards the carburetor. The sand particles, upon impacting the baffles, lose velocity and fall towards a collection hopper at the base of the chamber. The hopper possesses a drain valve that can be opened manually on the ground music to eliminate accumulated sand. In theory, it should function, but theory and reality in combat conditions are 2 very different matters. McPherson installs the prototype filter on a Hurricane Mk IIC Music of No. 3 Squadron RAF at 10 p.m. hours on the 15th of May. He labors for 4 hours by the light of a kerosene lamp, connecting the filter between the air intake and the Merlin carburetor, sealing connections with improvised rubber compound. By 2 o'clock hours on the 16th of May, the installation is complete. At 6:30 hours, they perform the ground engine run. Pilot Officer Marcus Webb, a 24-year-old pilot from Sydney, fires the Merlin. The engine starts normally. Webb increases power gradually from idle to 2,400 revolutions per minute music, then to maximum continuous power of 2,850 revolutions per minute. McPherson observes the instruments. Manifold pressure, 9 pounds per square inch, normal. Cylinder head temperature, 220 degrees Celsius, within range. Oil pressure, normal. But the critical factor is the loss of power. The improvised filter, by creating resistance to airflow, will inevitably reduce the music engine's power. The question is, by how much? If the loss is greater than 10%, the design is not viable because the Hurricanes are already at a performance disadvantage against the Bf-109s. Webb accelerates to maximum combat power, 3,000 revolutions per minute with the supercharger engaged. The instruments show 1,210 horsepower. Normal power for a Merlin XX without a filter is 1,280 horsepower. Loss, 70 horsepower, approximately 5.5%. Acceptable, music, says Webb. I prefer 5% less power than a dead engine after 40 hours. The real test will be in the air. At 9:15 hours on the 16th of May, 1942, Webb takes off in the modified Hurricane for a combat patrol mission over the Tobruk sector. Flight duration, 1 hour and 45 minutes, including 12 minutes at maximum power during a failed interception of bombers. Webb lands at 11 o'clock hours. McPherson inspects the filter immediately. He opens the drain valve of the collection hopper. Approximately 340 grams of fine, light brown sand fall to the ground. 340 grams of abrasive dust that would otherwise have entered directly into the engine cylinders. But the true proof is the oil analysis. McPherson drains a sample of engine oil and examines it under the light. The oil is clean, lacking the gritty consistency that normally appears after flights in the desert. He filters the oil through white cloth. Particle residue is minimal, comparable to engines operating in normal English conditions. The filter is working. In the following 7 days, McPherson installs improved filters on 12 Hurricanes of No. 3 Squadron. Each installation requires approximately 5 hours. The pilots report a power loss of 5 to 7%, but in exchange, the engines are running significantly smoother, and cylinder temperatures are 8 to 10 degrees lower. Music after 40 hours of operation, the Hurricanes equipped with McPherson filters show 0 engine failures. The Hurricanes without filters continue to fail at the same rate, 35 to 45 hours average service life. Music. The commanding officer, Group Captain Young Aide, summons McPherson on the 24th of May. Sergeant, I need these filters on every Hurricane in the units under my command. That is 47 aircraft. How much time do you require? Music. McPherson performs the calculations. Sir, if I can train 6 additional mechanics and acquire sufficient material, 8 days of working round the clock. You have the mechanics and unlimited access to spares and materials. Begin now. During the following 8 days, McPherson and his team work 12-hour shifts installing sand filters on Hurricanes across 3 squadrons. They consume 94 meters of aluminium sheet, 47 modified intake tubes, 188 handmade baffles, and approximately 800 rivets. On the 2nd of June, 1942, all 47 Hurricanes music are equipped with McPherson filters. The results are documented meticulously by the Squadron Engineering Officer Music. In the following 8 weeks of intensive operations in the Libyan desert, the Hurricanes equipped with McPherson filters averaged 210 hours of operation before requiring a major engine overhaul. This represents an increase of 450% compared to the 40-hour average of engines without filters. 210 hours means an engine can support approximately 130 to 150 combat sorties instead of 25 to 30. The operational impact is transformative. The squadrons, which previously had to rotate aircraft constantly due to engine failures, can now maintain serviceability rates of 78% compared to 41% prior to modification. The news propagates through the RAF and Allied units. By the 15th of June, 6 additional squadrons have adopted the McPherson filters. Music. By the 30th of June, the modification has extended to 14 squadrons operating Hurricanes, Spitfires, and Kitty Hawks with Merlin engines in desert conditions. The Air Ministry in London, confronted with overwhelmingly positive field reports, dispatches a team of Rolls-Royce engineers to Africa in July 1942 to evaluate the McPherson modification. The engineers expect to find a crude design needing extensive refinement. Instead, they find that the basic design is so effective that music it requires only minor modifications. The official Rolls-Royce report of the 18th of August, 1942 describes the McPherson filter as an elegantly simple solution utilizing sound principles of inertial separation, implemented with materials available in the field under extreme time restrictions. The design is officially adopted music as the Tropical Air Filter Merlin Series Modification McPherson in September 1942. Factory-produced versions begin arriving at North African units in October, but many units continue using McPherson's improvised filters because the local mechanics already know the design and can manufacture or repair them with available material. The legacy appears in the aircraft availability statistics. Post-war analysis by the British Air Ministry shows that squadrons equipped with McPherson tropical filters, or factory-produced versions based on his design, maintained operational serviceability rates 47% higher than squadrons without filters during desert operations music in 1942 and 1943. This translates to approximately 340 Merlin engines saved from premature failure and an estimated 1,800 additional combat sorties that would otherwise not have been possible due to aircraft being unserviceable from engine failure. Colin McPherson survived the war. He was decorated with the Distinguished Conduct Medal, DCM, for exceptional technical innovation that significantly increased the operational capability of combat units under extreme conditions. After the armistice, he returned to Australia, where he worked as a consulting engineer for mining companies, designing filtration systems for heavy equipment operating in dusty environments. McPherson died in 1978 at the age of 65. His obituary music in the Perth Advertiser mentions his service in the RAAF and his subsequent work in mining. It does not mention the sand filters, it does not mention the 340 engines saved, it does not mention the 1,800 combat sorties that existed because an Australian mechanic understood that desert dust could be defeated with basic physics and sheets of aluminium. Sometimes, the finest engineering solutions do not emerge from corporate research laboratories or design teams with years of aviation experience. They come from a technical sergeant with experience in Australian mines, access to scrap aluminium, and the understanding that heavy particles cannot change direction as rapidly as the air. The McPherson filters demonstrated something fundamental about innovation under pressure. One does not need exotic materials or revolutionary designs. Sometimes, one simply needs to understand basic physical principles, possess access to simple tools, and feel the urgency of 47 engines dying faster than they can be replaced. The North African desert in 1942 was one of the most hostile environments for high-performance aviation engines, but thanks to a mechanic who understood inertial separation better than the engineers at Rolls-Royce, it became an environment where British Hurricanes could operate with reliability comparable to temperate European conditions. What are your thoughts on this story of Australian ingenuity music in the African desert? Were you aware of how a mechanic with mining experience solved a problem that had frustrated Rolls-Royce engineers for months? Do leave a comment below and inform us if you have heard of other field innovations that saved critical equipment. I invite you to subscribe to the channel for more histories of technical innovation under extreme conditions. Each week, we rescue forgotten solutions that deserve to be remembered. Do activate the notification bell to ensure